People can smell desperation from a mile off, and if you're doing a lead generation campaign at the moment and you're getting ghosted, it's probably because you sound a little bit too desperate and people just get repelled away from you rather than actually having a conversation with you. So in this video, I'm going to be explaining some simple steps that you can go and take for yourself to help you stop sounding so desperate, and a lot of these steps actually sound counterproductive, but just stick with it and go and try it for yourself, and I guarantee you'll be booking more meetings. And at this point, I've booked thousands of meetings for myself and for my clients. And when I've stopped sounding so desperate, that is when I've had an increase in responses, increase in sales calls, and increase in revenue. So the first step is actually to stop oversharing all of the details. And what I mean by that is, no matter what kind of lead generation campaign that you're doing, whether it's an email campaign, whether it's an Instagram outreach, LinkedIn outreach, whatever it may be, or even if it's a paid ads campaign, if you're just explaining every single last detail about you, your service, or your product, or how you do things, it just repels people and it turns people away, because it's kind of like you're overcompensating for something rather than just getting straight to the point and explaining, why you're reaching out or what you actually do and what the outcome is. So to put that into perspective, if you've ever heard of something called commission breath, which basically means a salesperson, if they've got commission breath and they're on a call with someone and they're trying to close that prospect, they're trying to get the sale, and they sound so desperate to actually get that sale, otherwise they're not going to be able to eat food that night because they need the commission from that sale. That is what's called commission breath. So if someone can actually smell that, which, like I was saying, people can smell it from a mile off, even if it's the first sort of 10 seconds of actually speaking to someone, they will not buy, even if it's perfect for them. So if I actually explained how that would work, so if I was on a sales call and I was trying to pitch someone and they could just smell it from a mile off that I needed the sale, no matter what that other person said to me, if they felt like they could answer anything and then I was just trying to get the sale, then it will turn them away. Even if it's the perfect fit for the product and service for what that person needs, it will probably repel them and turn them away because I'm just so desperate for the sale. And another example for that would be if you go and ask a girl out for a date, right? And you go and ask them for a date, and if you're doing loads of follow-up messages, you've already asked them to go on a date with you, and you're sending all these follow-up messages of like a detailed paragraph of like, why you should go on a date and what you're going to be doing. It's just going to repel that girl. It's just going to repel someone from actually having a call with you. So it's the exact same when you're doing a lead generation campaign. If you're just explaining all these details into the nth degree, then it will just repel people. And you've probably run campaigns before where you've actually sat down and you've written, maybe if it was an email campaign, and you've written all the sort of key points as to what you do and blah, blah, blah. If you've actually tested that against something that's a lot shorter and you're just going in and explaining what the outcome is going to be, then I guarantee you probably had a lot more responses on that second form of outreach than the first form of outreach where you're just explaining everything to the nth degree. And to put that into perspective, last week for one of my clients, what we did is we did a email marketing campaign where you've got the first email, which is just explaining, exactly what we have to offer and blah, blah, blah. So you've written that first email. And generally, a lot of the time when you're doing email campaigns, people will see it, but then they just need reminding. So I'm not saying with oversharing that you need to not do any follow-ups. Like, obviously, you need to do follow-ups to actually get people booked in because it's just the name of the game. But sometimes in the follow-ups, what we do and what we did last week, which actually booked 12 demos for this client in particular, we just did a 1-sentence follow-up. So instead of explaining all the details and say, hey, just circling back, this is what we do, blah, 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 the bump-up email is basically just to reinforce, okay, are you interested? Are you interested in what I explained in that email before? Because you don't want to sound too desperate. And if you're explaining, basically, if you're just repeating yourself of what you said in that first email, it's just like, come on, like the person can read. So what we did for this campaign last week is we just had a follow-up email that basically was just a 1-sentence and said, hey, John, are you still interested in outcome? Or are you interested in outcome? It was something along those lines. And Dean Jackson actually coined this the 9-word email. What he did was he made this email very low pressure. It gives people an in or it gives people an out. And he basically said, you've got nothing to lose at this point. You may as well just send them a one-liner and basically say, are you interested in specific outcome? And a lot of the time, it's just easy for people to say yes or no. And if they are interested, it's just very quick and easy. They can just say yes And then you can go and book them in for a sales call or whatever your sales mechanism is. And it also gives them an out as well, because they can just say no. And I would rather someone say no to me than just not have a response at all, because it means that I would need to actually carry on following up with that person. But if they say no, then that's fine. We just move on to the next. So that actually books a lot of meetings, especially if the people who you're reaching out to are pretty busy. And, a lot of the people watching my videos, they're in the B2B space, so they're reaching out to other business owners, and other business owners are really busy. So if you just put a one-liner, one, it doesn't sound desperate, and two, people can just crystal clearly understand exactly what you're actually trying to do with this email. So instead of, I get a lot of emails from like SEO companies, and they're, they put SEO in the email, but they're explaining all these different intricate details. It's like, look, I know what SEO does. Just explain to me what the outcome is and what outcome you are probably going to deliver for me if we come on board together. So pulling that back together, step one is stop oversharing the details. And I guarantee if you do that, you will actually start getting a lot more responses. Now, step two is having pure conviction. So if you don't have any conviction in your product or service, and you're doing any form of outreach, or you're sending like videos, like a Loom video to someone, and you're just kind of, timidly explaining what you do and potentially how you can help, and you're explaining all the intricate details because you're sort of overcompensating for you not having any results or anything like that, you're going to have no conviction. And then the person on the other end is going to have no conviction in you that you can actually go and deliver a good service or, have a good product. So having conviction is absolute paramount when you're doing a lead generation campaign. And that doesn't have to be, on a sales call. That could be how you actually go and write your copy. It could be how you write your advertising campaign. It could be how you write your, LinkedIn DM or Instagram DM or email campaign. If you have conviction, there's going to be a lot more people actually responding to your outreach mechanism. So to put that into perspective, if your friend actually said to you, you've got to go to this restaurant, it was unbelievable, I'm definitely going there again, I've already actually rebooked to go in 2 weeks time, it was that good, you're probably going to have no questions and be like, okay, I've probably got to go there too. Like he obviously had a great time there, he had a great meal, let me get that booked in. But on the flip side, if your friend said, oh yeah, I went to this restaurant the other week, it was pretty good, I might go back there at some point, I'm not too sure, we had like a pasta dish, it was pretty good, you're probably going to be like, oh, okay, well, I could go there, but I'm probably not going to go there, and I don't really want to hear any more information about that specific restaurant, or I'm not going to like Google and have a look at the reviews or go on the website. Whereas the first example is I'm probably just going to book it without even looking at the reviews. You're going to be so convinced because that person was like, you've got to go there. They've had so much conviction in the way they actually spoke, then that is going to actually help people actually go to that restaurant and without even looking at the reviews or anything like that. And it's the exact same. Prospects only care when you're doing a lead generation campaign when you've got pure conviction in what you're actually selling. And the way you can do that is actually framing things like having good social proof. You've got good testimonials. You write in short, concise lines. You actually explain about the outcome that you could deliver in a specific time frame. There's loads of different things that you can do. But if you actually go and, for example, if you're writing an email and you just you don't sound very convincing, and if you read it yourself and you actually think, if I was actually in this other person's shoes, would I be convinced to actually go and take that next step? And remember, all we're trying to do with lead generation campaigns is get people to that next step. Then, if you're not convinced yourself, then the prospect certainly won't be convinced. So that was step two, having pure conviction and not trying to convince people. And that leans quite nicely into step three, which is trust layering. So making sure that people actually trust you, because if you sound too desperate, people literally won't trust you. And they both go hand in hand, right? Because if you sound too desperate, they're not going to trust you, and then they're not going to go onto that sales call. So what I teach people in my coaching program is to make sure that people actually trust you before they've even actually committed to going to having a sales call with you or whatever your sales process is. And a lot of the time that will mean someone will need to see some sort of case studies or a video of you. I teach people to do Loom videos, so actually people can trust you before you've even, asked them to have a sales call. They can actually see if they actually vibe with you, and actually, you're not sounding desperate. You're just trying to actually actually genuinely help them. So if you can actually bridge that gap of the trust to make sure that people actually understand, okay, well, this person can probably do what he's saying he's going to do. That person would just need some more information because I've already just explained who I am, what I do, what the outcome is. I've already given some case studies, testimonials of people in similar industries, blah, 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 blah. If you can bridge that gap with the trust, with things like that, then that will actually help you increase your show up rate, and it will increase the amount of meetings that you book, and it will increase the amount of closes that you can get. So a bonus step to actually make sure you're not sounding so desperate is to add real scarcity. And that's a lot of the time what gets people over to that next stage. So adding scarcity could literally be, you only work with a certain amount of clients, in any given time. But the key problem here is a lot of people say that they've got scarcity and they can only take on a certain amount of clients. But if you're just bringing in as many clients as humanly possible, then you've got no integrity and people are going to find you out. And I just would not go down that path. But if you can genuinely only take on 10 more clients, and then you can actually say that in your lead generation campaign, that is actually going to make you sound less desperate. It's got that scarcity there. You've got that sort of FOMO, fear of missing out, and people will actually maybe, be more inclined to actually go and have a conversation with you, especially if it sounds genuine. So if they trust you and you don't sound desperate and you've got scarcity, that will actually help you pull in a lot more meetings than you're already generating at the moment. And if you do want some help actually generating more leads and you have no idea in terms of what the strategy could be for you, and you are sounding too desperate, you're getting ghosted, then follow the instructions in the description and you will be able to get in touch with me, and then we can chat about how we can help you. I will see you on the next one. Peace.